Imagine opening your mailbox tomorrow.
I'm already dreading it.
Right. But just picture it. Mixed in with the usual junk mail and those local grocery flyers, you find a single solitary bill.
Okay.
And this bill represents your personal household share of an $18.8 trillion tab.
I mean, if I saw that bill, my first instinct would probably just be to panic.
Oh, absolutely. It's a terrifying number.
It is. But as scary as that massive figure looks on the surface, the real story hidden inside this data isn't just the sheer size of the bill.
Right.
It's what we actually bought with it. And more importantly, what it's going to cost us to maintain it.
And that is exactly the reality we are unpacking today. Welcome to our deep dive.
Glad to be here.
So we are looking at the Q1 2026 data on U.S. household debt. This comes straight from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York.
Yeah, the New York Fed report, always a dense one.
Very dense. And our mission for this deep dive is to look past that massive, intimidating headline number.
We really have to, yeah.
Because we need to understand how borrowing basically became the default setting for American life. And, what actually happens when these monthly payments start choking household budgets?
Well, because an $18.8 trillion debt load, it sounds like an absolute financial apocalypse waiting to happen.
It really does. Especially when you realize that is a $591 billion increase from just the previous year.
Wow. Just in 1 year.
Yeah. So I have to ask, how is the economy still functioning under that kind of weight?
So the short answer is that 18.8 trillion it's not a single doomsday metric sitting in one vault somewhere.
Okay.
The economy hasn't ground to a halt because that number represents a highly decentralized, incredibly complex web of, millions of individual household decisions.
Like everyday people just swiping cards or buying cards.
Exactly. To understand the structural integrity of the American financial system, you really have to pull that aggregate number apart and look at the underlying mechanics.
Well, let's do exactly that, because the Fed data actually breaks this down into very clear categories.
It does.
And mortgages account for the vast majority of this pie. We are looking at $13.19 trillion.
Which is roughly 70% of the total debt.
Right, 70%. And that particular slice is up $387 billion from a year earlier.
So housing is still growing.
Yeah. Then you have auto loans sitting at $1.69 trillion. Student loans represent $1.66 trillion.
Almost neck and neck there.
Pretty much. And then credit cards hold $1.25 trillion. Now that actually dipped slightly by $25 billion from the previous quarter.
But wait, didn't it still go up year over year?
Yes, exactly. It's still up $70 billion from a year ago. And finally, home equity lines of credit, or HELOCs, they account for another $446 billion.
So when you look at the distribution of those asset classes, it paints a very specific macroeconomic picture.
How so?
Well, it shows where American capital is currently tied up, and more importantly, what kind of collateral is actually backing all of those IOUs.
Okay, I want to push back on the alarmist nature of the broader headline right here. Because if 70% of this so-called debt crisis is just people buying homes, isn't that inherently a good thing?
In many ways, yeah.
A mortgage is backed by a physical house. And historically, that is an asset that usually goes up in value over a long enough timeline.
Right, unlike a credit card swipe at a restaurant.
Exactly. That dinner has zero residual value the moment the meal is over.
The distinction between productive and destructive debt is vital here.
Right.
Simply labeling all $18.8 trillion as this massive financial sickness completely misses the economic reality of how wealth is traditionally built in this country.
Because people use mortgages to build wealth.
Exactly. A mortgage is a financial tool. It is leveraged capital used to acquire an asset that, like you noted, potentially appreciates over time.
The homeowner is theoretically building equity.
Building equity, locking in their housing costs, and creating a hedge against inflation.
They're essentially forced to save money every month through their principal payment, right?
Exactly. So the true danger in this macroeconomic data isn't the total volume of the debt.
What is it then?
It's the velocity at which it grows and the proportion of income it consumes. A $13 trillion mortgage market is entirely sustainable if wages support the payments.
Right, if people can afford the monthly check.
The crisis begins when the carrying cost of the debt grows faster than a household's ability to generate cash flow.
Which brings us to an interesting middle ground in the data, I think. ADL-ALOs.
Ah, yeah. The $446 billion.
Right. This feels like a gray area between a mortgage and consumer debt.
It definitely is.
Because you are borrowing against the equity in your home, but you're not necessarily using it to buy more housing.
That $446 billion HELOC figure is a fascinating indicator of consumer behavior. Basically, a AKLOC allows a homeowner to treat their accumulated property wealth like an ATM.
Just tapping into the drywall for cash?
Pretty much. And sometimes that capital is deployed productively, like funding a major home renovation that increases the property's resale value.
Right, updating a kitchen or adding a bathroom.
But often, it's used to consolidate high-interest credit card debt or fund lifestyle purchases.
Oh, wow.
And the mechanical risk here is that you are converting unsecured debt.
Which only threatens your credit score if you default.
Exactly. You convert that into secured debt, which directly threatens your shelter.
So you are basically putting your house on the roulette table to pay off a vacation or a credit card bill.
Yep. And that macro-level inflexibility doesn't just stay on Wall Street. It trickles down directly to the micro level.
So let's look at what this actually looks like when it hits the consumer debt side of the ledger.
Yeah.
Because this is where things get significantly more precarious.
Let's talk about the psychology of the monthly payment, starting with cars.
Oh, the auto loan data in this Fed report is wild. Out of that 1.69 trillion total, there was a staggering $182 billion in new auto loans.
And that just appeared on credit reports in the first quarter of 2026 alone.
Yes, a single quarter.
That $182 billion is a direct reflection of how masterfully the financial industry understands human psychology and cash flow mechanics.
What do you mean?
Let's examine the economic reality of depreciation versus loan amortization.
Okay, let's break that down.
Let's say a buyer finances a $45,000 vehicle. The moment those tires roll off the dealership lot, the asset generally begins depreciating.
Right. Everyone knows it loses value immediately.
It loses a significant percentage of its market value almost instantly. Yet, the loan balance doesn't drop at the same speed.
Wait, let's unpack that amortization concept for a second, because that's where the math gets brutal for regular folks.
It really does.
When you take out a standard auto loan, your early monthly payments are heavily skewed toward paying off the interest, not the actual car, right?
That is the core mechanism of the trap. For the first year or two, your monthly payments are primarily satisfying the lender's interest yield.
So your actual principal balance barely shrinks at all,
Barely moves. Meanwhile, the car's real-world value is plummeting.
which creates that negative equity situation, being underwater.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are paying for an asset that is actively shedding value, all while interest continues compounding on the principal.
Wow.
This is how a seemingly reasonable Tuesday afternoon decision at a car dealership becomes a long-term financial anchor.
It's like this subscription psychology isn't just for software or streaming services anymore.
Oh, no, not at all.
It seems like the financial industry has effectively trained us to take a massive, painful number like $45,000 and magically shrink it down.
Make it look manageable.
Right. They turn it into a $700, $800, or $900 monthly subscription. And because that $800 fits cleanly into a household spreadsheet, the purchase feels completely affordable.
But that monthly payment isn't the real economic price.
No.
When you multiply that payment across a 72 or 84-month loan term,
7 years.
7 years of payments, and then you add the cost of capital, which is the interest, plus the requisite comprehensive insurance, fuel, maintenance.
And the silent, invisible cost of depreciation.
Exactly. The real footprint of that decision is vastly larger. The consumer debt machine basically weaponizes our natural preference for small, digestible numbers.
And nowhere is that psychological conversion more powerful or frankly more dangerous than with the $1.25 trillion sitting on credit cards.
Oh, without a doubt.
Because unlike a car, you aren't even getting a depreciating physical asset. You're essentially just subscribing to your own past consumption.
Credit card debt operates on a fundamentally different financial physics than a mortgage or even an auto loan.
How so?
With a mortgage, you borrow to capture an appreciating asset. With a credit card, you are borrowing against your own future labor to fund present desires.
I'm paying for today with tomorrow's hours.
Right. You're paying for things you want or perhaps desperately need today with money you haven't actually earned yet.
And the interest rates on that outstanding credit card debt are currently punishing.
Very high right now.
We're talking about rates that can easily exceed 20 or 25%.
Which creates a vicious compounding cycle that is mechanically very difficult to escape.
What does that cycle look like day to day?
The physics work like this. A consumer's current paycheck isn't quite enough to cover their lifestyle, inflation, or a sudden emergency, so they utilize credit.
Which makes sense in a pinch.
Sure, but that outstanding balance immediately generates a high interest charge at the end of the month. That interest is then capitalized.
Meaning it's added to the principal balance itself.
Exactly. So in the next billing cycle, that larger balance now produces an even larger interest charge, even if the consumer hasn't bought a single new item.
Man, suddenly a massive portion of today's hard-earned paycheck is evaporating just to pay the interest on a meal you ate or a flight you took 6 months ago.
The past literally starts consuming the future.
Which means all these lifestyle subscriptions, these compounding credit balances, and these underwater car loans have to eventually hit a breaking point.
They do. The math demands it.
So what is the reality check in the New York Fed's data when these payments start becoming mathematically impossible for households to maintain?
The stress fractures in the structural integrity of the system are clearly visible when you look at the delinquency data.
Okay, let's look at the numbers.
At the end of March 2026, the report notes that 4.8% of outstanding U.S. household debt was in some stage of delinquency.
Okay, wait, just to separate the noise from the signal here, especially since we know headlines love to panic,
Sure.
that 4.8% represents delinquent debt balances, not necessarily 5% of all American households going insolvent, correct?
Yes, a crucial and necessary distinction.
So we're looking at a measurement of distressed capital, not just a head count of bankruptcies.
Right. It means 4.8% of the dollars lent out are delinquent. We always have to separate the raw facts from the sensationalized interpretation.
Okay, that makes sense.
A single highly leveraged real estate investor defaulting on a multi-million-dollar mortgage moves that percentage much more than 50 college students missing a credit card payment.
Ah, got it.
But when you look at exactly where that 4.8% is concentrated across the different loan types, you see where the real economic pain is hiding beneath the aggregate number.
And student loans seem to be flashing bright red in this report.
Flashing bright red is an understatement.
The Fed data shows about 10.3% of student loan balances are now 90 or more days delinquent. That is a massive number.
That double-digit delinquency rate is a glaring signal of a systemic mismatch.
Why is it so high right now?
Well, student loans are theoretically underwritten as an investment in human capital and future earning power.
Like a business taking a commercial loan to build a new manufacturing plant.
Exactly. A degree is supposed to reliably increase lifetime income. But the harsh economic reality is that a $40,000 education and a $200,000 education are not equal financial decisions just because they both yield a framed diploma.
Because the labor market doesn't care what you paid for the degree. It only cares about the value of the skills you can provide.
Precisely the issue. The initial investment only works if the resulting professional income can easily carry the amortized monthly bill.
And if it doesn't?
When the grace period ends and payments begin, the loan servicer doesn't care about the theoretical or societal value of the education.
They just want their money.
They demand the mathematical monthly payment based on the principal and interest. If the degree doesn't provide the expected premium in the labor market, that debt transforms from a launch pad into a dead weight.
And that 10.3% delinquency spike didn't just happen in a vacuum, did it?
No, timing is key here.
Because federal student loan payments and reporting recently resumed after a long, unprecedented administrative pause?
Yes, the pandemic pause ending hit hard.
So we're seeing the mechanical shock of budgets that adapted to not having that $300 or $400 monthly payment suddenly having to absorb it all over again?
Add to that the mechanism of capitalization we discussed earlier.
Wow, with the interest.
Right. For many borrowers, interest continued to accrue or capitalize during deferment periods in the past.
So they owe more than they started with.
Meaning thousands of borrowers are now paying interest on a balance that is significantly larger than the amount they originally borrowed for tuition.
And we are seeing similar pressure points radiating into the credit card data as well.
Very much so.
The transition rate into early delinquency hit 8.6% in Q1, while the flow into serious delinquency hovered around 7.1%.
Which is quite elevated.
So let me play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
If consumer debt is causing these massive delinquency spikes and trapping so much future income, shouldn't we just actively discourage borrowing on a national level? I mean, why does the system continue to aggressively push credit onto consumers?
Because of the inescapable macroeconomic reality we live in.
Which is?
The American economy relies heavily on this constant cycle of borrowing to function and grow. Credit is the engine of immediate economic expansion.
Okay, explain that.
Let's look at the multiplier effect.
Yeah.
When someone borrows $400,000 to buy a newly built house, the bank earns interest, yes. But the construction company generates revenue. The lumberyard gets paid. The concrete layers, the carpenters, the electricians, and the local hardware store all get a paycheck.
And local municipalities collect property taxes.
Exactly.
And the same exact multiplier effect applies to the auto industry.
Totally.
An auto loan doesn't just buy a car. It pays the manufacturer. It keeps the steel mills and assembly lines running. It pays the dealership owner, the salesperson, and the marketing agencies.
That is the multiplier effect in action. The entire system is predicated on the ability of households to borrow future money and pull it into the present to spend today.
Wow, pull the future into today.
Yep. A sudden, massive drop in consumer borrowing wouldn't just hurt bank profits, it would trigger a severe recession.
So we're kind of locked in.
We are. The structural problem we are facing isn't the act of borrowing itself. The core flaw is a systemic failure of borrowers understanding long-term compounded costs.
And the banking industry plays a huge, deliberate role in obscuring those long-term costs through the illusion of qualification.
Oh, the word qualification does a lot of heavy lifting.
It really does. The bank runs your credit, tells you that you're approved for a $400,000 mortgage, or they mail you a shiny card with a $20,000 credit limit.
And how does that feel to the consumer?
Well, to a consumer, that feels like a professional endorsement. It feels like institutional permission.
Yes.
You sit there and think, well, the bank's underwriters ran the complex algorithms, they know my gross salary, they must think I can easily afford this.
That assumption is one of the most dangerous traps in personal finance.
Why is it so dangerous?
We have to clearly outline the stark difference between qualification and affordability.
Okay.
Banks, auto dealers, and credit card issuers use credit scores and debt-to-income formulas for one primary self-serving reason: to protect their own risk models, not yours.
They're protecting themselves.
Right. They're calculating the statistical probability that you will default and cost them money.
They are looking at your gross income, not your net income after taxes. And they certainly aren't calculating your desired quality of life, your childcare costs, or your retirement goals.
The financial system tells you the absolute maximum you can theoretically borrow before breaking, not what you actually should borrow to remain financially healthy.
That is such a vital point.
Because the bank doesn't live with the consequences of a financially trapped borrower.
Right.
They don't feel the suffocating stress of a monthly household budget that has absolutely zero room for error.
No, the borrower carries every ounce of that burden.
Exactly.
So if you're listening to this right now and trying to figure out what this $18.8 trillion macro trend means for you, the ultimate takeaway has to come down to your own balance sheet.
It always does.
If the total figure isn't just a measure of national financial sickness.
Because much of it is productive debt, like housing, and much of it drives the economic engine.
Right. So what is the real tangible cost of this debt load for the average person?
The broader implication here, synthesizing all the data from this Q1 Fed report, comes down to a single, powerful economic concept.
And what's that?
Lost financial flexibility.
Lost financial flexibility.
Yes. The most important number in your financial life isn't your gross salary. It isn't your FICO score. It isn't the maximum mortgage limit a bank approved you for.
Then what is it?
The most critical metric for your peace of mind is the amount of your future income that you've already legally pledged to someone else.
It's the ultimate opportunity cost.
Right, exactly.
Every loan, every swipe, every financed vehicle takes a mandatory bite out of tomorrow's paycheck. The true hidden cost of this $18.8 trillion isn't just the billions in interest flowing into the coffers of Wall Street banks.
No, it's not just the interest.
It is the sheer compounding lack of personal options.
Money that is contractually committed to servicing past debt simply cannot be deployed to secure your future.
It's tied up.
Completely. A dollar paying off a depreciated car cannot simultaneously build a 6-month emergency fund. It cannot be invested in the equity markets to capture long-term compound growth. It cannot fund the launch of a new small business venture.
It's doing work in the past, not the future.
Exactly. And perhaps most importantly for household stability, an income heavily leveraged by debt offers zero padding if your salary suddenly drops, a massive inflation spike hits groceries, or a medical emergency arises.
Which translates this massive macroeconomic report directly to the front door.
It really does.
Because America doesn't actually have one giant $18.8 trillion problem sitting in Washington.
No, the country has millions of individual households, each trying to juggle their own specific set of micro-obligations. Debt rarely arrives in your life as a terrifying trillion-dollar monolith.
Right, it doesn't show up all at once.
It arrives Quietly, incrementally, it arrives as a $2,400 mortgage payment,
Yeah.
a $700 car payment, a $300 student loan bill, a $150 minimum payment on a credit card.
And one payment at a time, month after month, the trap closes.
It closes tight.
You can easily have a household pulling in what looks like a fantastic top-tier income on paper.
Maybe they're top 10% earners in their demographic.
Exactly. But after all those mandatory subscriptions to their lifestyle are paid out on the first of the month, their actual financial freedom has completely vanished.
They're high earning, but essentially living paycheck to paycheck.
Constantly moving money around just to keep the plate spinning.
And that lack of margin fundamentally changes how you interact with the world and the choices you make.
How so?
Well, when your future income is already claimed by 5 different lenders, you become inherently risk-averse.
Because you can't afford a disruption.
Right. You can't leave a toxic job or a bad boss because you desperately need the continuous cash flow to feed the debt machine.
You just have to endure it.
You can't relocate across the country for a better, albeit riskier, opportunity. The debt has effectively dictated the physical and professional parameters of your life.
That brings the reality of this Fed report completely into focus.
It's the real human cost behind the numbers.
The core lesson of the $18.8 trillion data we've unpacked today isn't that borrowing money is an inherent sin.
No, borrowing is a vital, mathematically sound tool for acquiring appreciating assets, stabilizing your housing costs, and building a professional career.
The real danger, the psychological trap hidden inside that massive figure, is borrowing so much of your future that there is very little left for you to actually live on today.
Well said. You know, if we step back and look at the macro machine one last time,
Yeah.
if our entire economic growth engine, from car manufacturers moving metal off the lot, to big banks issuing high-limit credit cards, to universities constantly raising tuition,
Right.
if all of that relies entirely on consumers willingly trading away their future financial flexibility for a shiny monthly payment today, what would happen to the broader U.S. economy if an entire generation suddenly woke up, did the math, and refused to play the game?
Wow. Now there is a thought to leave you with. Take a hard look at your own mailbox, and more importantly, take a look at how much of your next paycheck is already legally spoken for. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.